a little lower for me. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for one of our Westmont Downtown Lecture series. This is an event sponsored by the Westmont Foundation, so special thanks to them. They put on several events in collaboration with Westmont, including President's Breakfast, but this Westmont Downtown series is such a great way for us to get downtown, and I will say, this is the first time we're in this venue, and I feel a little hipper because of it. This feels really great. What a great venue. So many thanks to the organizers and the hosts here. I am Eileen Mcquaid. I'm Associate Dean of the Faculty, and I have also been a professor of biology at Westmont for about 15 years. As Associate Dean, what do? I really help the provost, who's the Chief Academic Officer, with different projects. But one of the things I get to steward is faculty development. Now, it's a pretty good gig because you get to hear about what all the faculty are doing, their hopes and dreams, their publications, there's talks, their books, lots of things, and you can give them some money. So it just feels really great to witness all the good work of our faculty. So this does give me a unique lens to introduce my dear colleague, Dr. Randall VanderMey, our speaker today. At Westmont, we want our students to become lifelong learners, right? Who's heard that term? Lifelong learners. It's almost a cliche now. So maybe I should reframe that a bit to say that we want our students to live lives that embody curiosity and inquiry, and to be not solely consumers, but also creatives. Dr. Randall VanderMey is an inspiring model of this, not only for our students, but also for his faculty colleagues. Randy is never satisfied in familiar waters, but he seems to continually choose to enter the unexplored coves or the spaces beyond the boundaries of his map. Indeed, his lecture today will focus on one of the latest new areas of these explorations. He also seeks out collaboration with other faculty, partly because I think he comes with a humble spirit to learn, but also because I think he recognizes the creative synergy that happens when two or more people go for a common goal together. So Dr. Randall VanderMey received his undergraduate degree in English from Calvin College in Michigan. Maybe the Vander before his name could give that away. He earned a master's degree in English from the University of Pennsylvania, as well as a master's in fine arts from the Iowa Writers Workshop. His PhD in English was completed at the University of Iowa, where his dissertation was called Desire and Restraint in the Visionary Long Poems. And it goes on, but it makes me want to read it. He was an assistant professor at Dordt College for several years before joining the faculty at Westmont in the English department in 1991. He was lead author of a very prominent textbook called The College Writer, with many editions that have come since. He has written many poems, published in a wide variety of venues, from academic journals to magazines to larger anthologies and compilations. He has written several screenplays that have been produced with the Westmont Faculty Theater Arts, or the Westmont Theater Arts program, and he has collaborated with the music department faculty in producing and staging musical compositions based on his writings. His explorations of iPhone photography, coupled with poetry, is just the latest evidence of this commitment to the written and visual arts. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Randall VanderMey.
Thank you, Eileen. Only one correction there, no screenplays. I've never written a screenplay. It's a stage play, a dramatic script.
I am a biology professor.
Yeah, I'm sorry for making it so hard for you, because there's a lot of different sides to this career. Photography and poetry against my will. How many of you came because you heard the word photography? How many came because you heard the word poetry? How many came because you heard the phrase photography and poetry? How many of you came because you heard against my will? 2 of you. Well, that's mainly what I'm going to talk about tonight. The rest of you can go home. No, that's the part that intrigues me the most, personally. I'm not a photographer lifelong. In fact, I want to start at an unusual place. Eileen? Sorry. I just noticed. Is this better? Ha. Shall I start again? No, I want to start at an unusual place. A high hill, rounded hill, about 17 miles southwest of Jerusalem. It's called the Herodium. It's a pleasure palace and now mausoleum built by Herod the Great. I was with a group of Europe semester students in 2008. On top of this now ruined pleasure palace with apartments in the middle of it, you'd enter through the middle, about 5 of our young female students, the gender is not important, but they were, I'm sure it is to them, but they were all gathered around, yelling, screaming, and taking selfies with one another, which is fine. It's in the open air, except that there was a German group right next to them, which couldn't hear themselves think, because our students were so full of themselves. Well, I sidled over to them and said, would you mind maybe keeping it down a little bit? Just because there is this group next to you that is courteously waiting and can't seem to get on with their business because of the noise that's interfering. And one of the students spoke back to me and said, that's their problem. You thought Westmont students were such angels, didn't you? That's their problem. And I said, no, I don't think so. I think that's your problem. It's our problem as a program, and I would ask for a certain amount of courtesy. And her answer to me was, and this was the youngest person in the group, I think she's learned some things since then. She said, well, Dr. VanderMey, I disagree. And then I said some more, and she said, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree. Well, I don't know how you would feel in a situation like that. You're a teacher, it's you and them. I felt the heat rise here. I didn't want to speak in anger. I didn't want to make a scene right there. I wanted to deal with it in a different way, and I went away thinking unhelpful thoughts about punishment and shaming and all this kind of stuff that I had to reject one after the other. I finally came up with an idea. I said, I want to deal with this positively. I want to see if I can get these students to turn outward. And so what I did was proposed a photography contest for the students to say, let's look out. Let's look outward, like a journalist would do, at things around us. And we'll have a contest, and at the end of the semester, when we're back in Jerusalem, we will have, we'll jury this, and I'll give a prize right out of my own pocket, $75 for the winner. Turned out that the winner of that contest took a photo that I'll never forget. It was a pile of 4 stones, which didn't look like much. Now, this was supposed to be a narrative photography, a storytelling. How does a pile of 4 stones tell a story? Well, it happened that these 4 stones were pictured in a creek bed where David purportedly fought Goliath. And the scriptures say that David picked up 5 smooth stones. And we have 4. Where's that 5th? Well, it's in the air right now, sailing toward the forehead of Goliath. And there's your story. And that was the winner of our contest, because we thought that the charge of implicit meaning in that was so deep and so rich. And that put photography on notice for me. That was 2008. 2015, I was co-leading another Europe semester program. And I was teaching a course, it's a precursor to a course that a few students here had just taken with me. It was called Global Narratives in the Arts of Europe. And I told everybody that one of the things that they have to do in the course would be to do a creative project. Any medium, do a creative project. Could be painting, could be drawing, could be filmmaking, could be anything. And it had to do with narrative. And then I said, well, I'm going to do it too. Then I went away scratching my head and saying, what am I going to do? Am I going to draw? Going to paint? What am I going to do? I'm really not, I'm a poet. and I don't want to do poetry because I said, do something that's difficult for you. Explore a new medium. So I had this itchy hand, I kept looking at this thing. No, here's my medium right here in my pocket all the time. And I didn't want to use it. Why did I not want to use it? I was against photography for, I would say probably 55, 60 years. I never owned a camera. I didn't know how to use one, never had any lessons in it. I didn't know how to look. I was against photography in a lot of ways because my wife kept saying to me, well, get a picture of that, get a picture of that. And I kept answering, I'm sure she could recite my standard answer to her. Why would I want to get a picture of an experience I'm not having because I'm taking a picture of it? And I thought that was quite bright, but it kept me from caring and knowing about photography. So I had studied photography's history, and then, so I would say it was against my will that I first began taking pictures. I had to overcome that. I might turn it around and say, what would a will-driven photography practice look like? Well, I would say some things like these, and this is not to cast aspersions on anybody. There are good reasons for having strong will and pursuing photography careers, no doubt about it. But for me, a will-driven career would be concerned chiefly with numbers in the audience, going viral, perhaps. It would maybe replicate favorite images and methods, like TikTok. It separates into all these little genres, and everybody has to do that now, this little dance. Pursue products and product placement, sponsorships. It would lean on cliched themes and motifs and styles and methods, and would maybe lower standards for the sake of efficiency and maximum exposure with minimum effort. This is at least my mental structure when I'm thinking, what would a will-driven photography look like? And there's plenty of it in the world. It would dominate the subject. And again, nothing wrong with this, but if I were really driven by my will, I would use models. I would artificially light the situation. I would pose people. I'd maybe start a studio or something like that, none of which I wanted to do. I'd rather not do it than do any of those things. So, okay. At some point, I had the conviction that I should do this photography, and I didn't have anything to. Well, I could see a lot of things, but it started for me when I was in Spain, somewhere between Granada and Cordoba. We stopped at a train station that's a kind of a standard tourist stop and shop, and I went into a bathroom, and something was strange. Something was uncanny and weird. I looked in the mirror, and I couldn't see myself. Why? Because the mirror was made of strips of mirrored glass. Let me call this up a second, and soon we'll be off and rolling. All right, is there something I should do to make that appear, my dear friends in the back? Everything was set. Just use your imaginations. I'll describe it verbally. It'll be a very short program if it... Okay. It just probably went to sleep, right? Like some of you will probably want to do before the evening is over. I'm just kidding. Okay, bear with me. So while I'm playing with this, let me construct the scene for you. I walk in there, and there we go. There's the image. And This is not good photography. I don't make any claim that it is. All I say is there's something uncanny about it. I could not see my face. No matter where I moved, my body was out of the picture. All I could see was this replication of my arm. First I was angry. I thought, God, what are Spain, you know? They can't do anything around here. Then I go, whoa, look at that. And I started making jazz hands, and then I said, I got this camera in my pocket, maybe I could capture that, and that's what I did. I took that. I didn't know anything about editing at that point, and so I lived with that for a while, and I didn't know why that exerted a kind of strange appeal over me. I did notice some things about it, and here's what I want to so, by the way, the structure of the evening here will be, I'm going to talk a little bit like I'm doing now about photography. Then I'm going to show you a boatload of photos, and they're going to go kind of fast, and then, from time to time I will stop and read a poem that goes with some of them. Okay, so it's going to be kind of phantasmagoric. There's going to be like 4 to 6 seconds per image, and then stop and read poem. So, what was I captivated by here? Well, I found that there was a strange reciprocity between me and my subject. Yeah? If I moved, it moved. If I wanted to get a picture of it, it would give me back a picture of myself taking a picture. So I couldn't divorce myself from the subject. I had to feel for that subject because the subject was me in the mirror. So it was the beginning of intersubjectivity. Composition. You know, it's poor composition for a variety of reasons I don't need to explain, but it was a composition nevertheless. There's repeated elements, and there's balance or imbalances and so forth. There's a two-dimensional plane with a distribution of the parts, all of that. And so I discovered I'm not just taking a picture of something I see. And by the way, am I puffing in the microphone? Yes, I did there. Should I back away from this sound, guys? No? Not bad? Okay. So I'm not just taking a picture of what I see. I am actually making an image. Making an image. And even though I hadn't learned to edit yet, I did have to consider design, parts, proportions, spatial relations, visual dynamics. They involve a decoder, and encoding and decoding, a viewer, a respondent, all that kind of stuff going on. And there was this strange excitement that I felt. I'd never felt quite like that before. Other kinds of excitement, yes, but never over photography. I found that creating a found object, receiving, improvising, getting the gift, making like a poet, poiein, to make, was what I was doing here. I'd lived my life as a poet and fiction writer, and now I was making something in a different medium, and it felt the same. It did, and it still does. I say to people sometimes, now I don't know sometimes whether I'm operating in a visual or verbal medium, because I'm connecting with the subject at a level where there is not a difference between the two. There's a going out of myself to the subject. And that's been life-changing for me. I knew that if I were going to make more images like these, and better ones, I'd have to be, one, ready with the equipment. Couldn't just think about it, had to be ready. Had to be ready to perceive when I saw something, and that takes mental preparation. And I had to be open, spiritual preparation, really, to what I might find. So, as for equipment, I knew I really didn't feel like learning and lugging around shoulder bags with tripods and lenses and filters and all these things. I didn't want to be concerned with numbers, f-stops, ratios, this and that. I just didn't have the mind for that, and I didn't have the appetite for it. So if I didn't have this iPhone, I wouldn't be a poet. I wouldn't be a photographer at all. I'm pretty sure, to this day. As for being ready to receive, this new commitment to take photos started making new demands on me. I discovered I was not very good at paying attention, even though I had spent a lifetime of paying attention to those things that a poet might think about, to my own thoughts. But I was not very good at paying attention to the world around me, to the objects around me, to everything that I see. I had a bias in favor of words, and I was too busy, too preoccupied to stop long enough to see what I wanted, what was there to be seen. So I had to slow myself down. That made a considerable demand on me. I was a professional English professor. We always had papers to grade. We never got enough sleep. Somebody was always ringing us up. How do you stop in the midst of a life like that? Well, I had to, if I was going to do this photography thing. And I needed a greater, what I would call an ecological sense. Needed to integrate that with my Christian faith. Because, I grew up believing in a created order and God planting us in the garden, the fall, redemption, all of those theological verities, very, very much part of my thinking, but I never felt really part of the system of things that were made, things that were growing, things that were changing, including plate tectonics, including plants, including stars and solar systems and all of that. So I needed to, it got deep pretty quickly here. I needed to change that if I was going to develop more of an intersubjective relationship with the subject that I was looking at. Then I had to consider, just a little aside, think about how cameras work. Camera means room, Latin for room. It's a little room into which light, we call it taking a picture, as if we reach out and grab it and pull it into ourselves. But it works quite the opposite. We open ourselves to it, it enters in, it takes us, in a sense, takes hold of us, enters in. That's the nature of seeing. Your eye is a little room, the camera is a little room, and that's where things are recorded. So I had to consider things on that level too, and let go of some of the will. I had to stop wanting to see what I wanted to see. And a good example of that is if you read Walker Percy's book, The Message in the Bottle, he's got a wonderful description there of how our seeing is stunted. Many people will go to the Grand Canyon and not be happy with what they see there because it's a little too cloudy or rainy that day. They got their picture of what the Grand Canyon must look like from a postcard. And it didn't look like the postcard, so they say, I didn't see the Grand Canyon. No, they did, So in other words, that's imposing the will on this thing as big as the Grand Canyon and believing that you're prevailing, when in fact you're just stunting yourself by not seeing what's there to be seen and experiencing that moment as it's there to be experienced that day. These are some of my thoughts as they float along. So if I'm going to be somebody who's not going to see the postcard version of things, but to see what actually is there, I'm going to have to live my life with a state of expectancy. And I'm going to have to say, anywhere I turn, I might see something in the next moment that might change me, that I'm not prepared to see. Something that is more interesting than I was looking for. And it's never failed me yet. Finally, I thought, if I'm going to do this the way I think I would need to do it, I would have to think of myself not as part of a market economy, not as part of a capitalist enterprise, but as part of a gift economy, where I receive a gift, where I have a gift, where I give a gift again. And that's why I turned, not too many years later, to Instagram, because despite all of its drawbacks, like data collection and, algorithms and massive surveillance and so forth. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here, but it's just the truth about internet and about Instagram. I still feel that it's a beautiful opportunity to create a free gallery space. I'm not growing anymore in my Instagram following, at least I haven't for a couple months. But, there's about 2,000 people connected with me through Instagram, more than 2,000 people from every country in the globe. Wow. This is not something I sought. They just started coming. And they've stayed in touch and kept on following, and they make comments and stuff like that. Sometimes in Spanish, sometimes in Russian. And I have to go to a translator to figure out whether they're praising or blaming. So, somewhere along the line, I started feeling, okay, let's keep this awake. Somewhere along the line, I started feeling that I had words to say, too. I wasn't going to abandon things. Words came to my mind, and they weren't captions. They weren't explanations of what's perfectly obvious to the eye already. That bores me silly. I mean, no offense if you do that. It just bores me silly. I won't be liking that on Instagram if I see it. Sorry. I thought, but words come unbidden sometimes. And sometimes I'll sit there until words arrive that are not descriptive of the thing they're seeing necessarily, but maybe that accompany, and that together with the image constitute some new and fuller and different and unforeseen reality, an experience. And that's kind of what I do now. I would say, if I could sum up the whole process before showing you some images, I would just say, I would use the word generosity as a word that sums up the change in me, that a deeper generosity. That is, if you look at the etymology of the word generosity, the Proto-Indo-European root word would be gene, if that's how you would pronounce it, G-E-N-E hyphen. And that means to give birth or beget. To give birth or beget. So to become more generous is to go out of yourself, to give birth to an interest in, to a new creation, to, well, basically means treat things like family. And for me, that's had an impact on the way I see ecology, the way I see environmental studies, and the way I see racism. I think there is a solution here to racism if I see all people, regardless of their color, as family, and see our relations as generative. I've learned that from photography in a way I've never learned it from any other source. Okay? I'm just going to stop with my preparatory remarks there. And I think I want to leave some room for questions at the end, but I've got an embarrassingly large number of photos to show you. So some of them I'm going to go very quickly through. What I think I will do is just give you about 4 seconds or so to look at a photo, just to get the impression of it, and maybe I'll say where it was taken or what kind of thing this is. Some things you wouldn't, I'll say the things you wouldn't guess. So this I took, here's what you wouldn't guess about that. I took this picture. Think about it. I took this picture. I was in a fun house on the top of a high hill in Prague, Czech Republic. And so there were mirrors everywhere. And I was looking in another mirror that showed me looking in another mirror and looking in another mirror. And it looks for all the world like. There's two of me taking pictures of each other. So that's one of those that grabbed me. This is the Arc De Triomphe in Paris. This is from a tower in Germany, in a German cemetery, not what you see at the Normandy. There's no praise for the victors here. You can see by those tombstones how they are kind of humble and kind of beaten down. And this was taken in Auschwitz. I can't tell you all the feelings these are prosthetic devices that were left behind in Auschwitz. See where I started to get feeling of connection to the subject? This was in a breakfast nook in Munich, hammered metal above a table, and I shot upward so that it showed our breakfast dishes in a reflected, distressed surface. This was in Warsaw. I was taking a picture of a modern building with a World War II era building behind me, and something about how askew those windows are spoke to me. Gabe Hollis over there, his parents have this image framed in their home. This one I took more recently in Grand Rapids, Michigan, as I went home for a class reunion. Ashland, Oregon, at a hotel. I started to think more about simplifying. Here's the paving stones in my driveway. And I thought of Pete Mondrian after a rain. This was taken in the art department at Westmont in the printmaking room. There's a drying rack or something like that. And looking down through that, so these are not in order. These are more arranged in types, categories of. So some of these are early, and then some of these are later. This one's about 2 years ago in Minneapolis at a bus stop where I saw this strange baffle. Here, my television glitched, and I said, "Hey, wait, let's replay that." And something's cool about that. I want to get that. And that's what came of it. This was in Westmont Museum of Art. Doug Ayasaka had a show, and I liked the shadow on the wall that had a portion of his. I thought I wasn't plagiarizing him because I wasn't even identifying, I wasn't identifying even what this object is. I'm interested in the spirals and the shapes. This is probably my most minimalistic photograph. It's a chair in my office. I actually get I feel moved by this. I've spent some time psychoanalyzing it, and I'm not going any farther there. This was at the Blunders in the Grass over there in what's the name? Montecito over there. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you can see by the cast of the shadows this beaded curtain pole. And this was a branch from an overhanging hedge, casting a very ideogram-like shadow on a wicker chaise in our backyard. This was me walking across the campus at Westmont under an umbrella. It's raining clearly. There's a plastic panel that has the raindrops on it, so I could see out and not stumble. I call this one the gentle anarchy of rain. This was taken at Lotus Land, and the juxtaposition of cactus and moon, and the simplicity of it. And this, I thought of it as, how some people catch flies with chopsticks? I sort of thought of that by putting it on its side. This was actually the white of a fried egg in a frying pan. And when I edited it, played with the color a little bit, and boom, it turned blue on me. And I thought maybe this is a fjord coastline from Sweden or something. But I like those things when they're they're visually ambiguous. This one I took at the AT&T building near La Cumbra, and I just call it Thought Balloon. This one, my wife will be embarrassed for me to say, is her back in Santa Fe at a hotel with light coming through a blind and landing on her. Gloriously, I thought. I removed all signs of her presence and kept the light. No offense, honey. She's back there. Okay, I want to read this. This is in Saigon, where our stepson lives. And here's a poem that I wrote, Our Lady of Saigon. Many jokes from the tourists that the orb in the Virgin's hand is a bowling ball. No jokes at all about peace, world, or the kind that passes understanding. The bird in swoop being not a dove, but a pigeon, and its cargo not an olive branch, but some random bit of flax. And anyway, the bird long gone before all tourists, save one, could lift their heads from the burden of punching cell phone keys as if the future of their world depended on it. I shot this one a long ways away, and it's blown up beyond what any good photographer would do, but I just saw this in Saigon. I shot this through a cab window as we were riding along a street. Just thought, now that's a acrobatic pyramid we'll never see again. This I call Sisyphus. Maybe you remember the little the sculptural forms that were down by the train station, little grid-like things. Grid's kind of the theme of this part of the show. This happened. I have a friend, Tom Spadaro, over there, And this happened to be scratch marks on the wheel cover of Tom's car after he parked next to me at the golf course. I looked and said, hey, look at that. Scratch marks where he's rubbed up against the curb or something. And so I wrote this poem about that. I am the way things happen, the sense seen after the fact, the form of no form. I am the reason you give before changing the subject, the daily practice of getting along. I am a nest of white lies. This was somewhere near Muscle Shoals, at a little campground. These looked kind of like two eyes to me, something sad about it, clownish. This was a little silhouette of implements on the back of a pickup truck parked in front of our house. This was taken about a month ago at City College, right around sunset. I just thought every character in that photo has a personality and is touching someone or reaching or responding. The dynamic lines going back and forth just continue to intrigue me. And I like this, the way the sun caught the grass. It's only one little moment in time would that be just so. Downtown, I thought, do I see a pregnant woman in profile here? Am I the only one? Okay. This looks like nothing, but it's a little bit of ivy, an anchor, clung to a wall after the thing is dried and blown away, and this remains, and it casts its own shadow on the wall. This was a little, my wife will recognize this is a little step stool by the toilet for our little grandchild. And I thought it's more interesting this way. Sorry about that. This I was walking along a road when I went to visit my mother, who had just had a stroke and was ill enough after that we had committed her to hospice. I was feeling very forlorn. And I came along and saw this along a country road in Michigan. Wires sprung all over the place. And it almost seemed like I was seeing an angel. I said, before I take form, my poem says, before I take form, I must be energy. Before energy, power. And before I am power, I must be a dream. No mention of angels, but they're in there for me. I must be a dream. This is a curiosity, this one and the next. These are both images that I make in my classroom after the class has departed, and I use the whiteboard spray cleaner to clean the whiteboard, and it makes the writing on the board disintegrate and slowly start to drip down the board. And I say, hold it! And I snap a shot, and this is what I see. Nobody else, I think, has ever seen that, and that's why it thrills me. This is another minimalist treatment of this, and an even more minimalist black and white version of the same. And I wrote this in connection with it. If you and I were each an eye, would we blink together, do you think? Would we cry, mascara down a cheek? Who'd dab us dry, and would you peek? If you and I were each an eye, could we muster one smile for a while? Just a face? This face interests me still more. I call this Mrs. Bagley. I don't know do you see a face in there? Okay, some people don't. And it's like, I don't know why not, but not everybody sees the same. I've certainly discovered that. This is a close-up of the headlamp in my Mini Cooper. I looked in there and said, holy cow, somebody's looking back at me. And it's a cartoon of some kind. And so I wrote a paper once that's been published somewhere called Beauty, Prayer, and the Sticky Image. My iPhone Beauty, Prayer, and the Sticky Image, my iPhone as a practice. I got the title wrong, but it's close. Another fried egg, and this one says, these noise-canceling earphones are great, but they don't block out the noise from inside my head. This one, I would say, Lady Liberty, a yearning to breathe free. This is actually just a segment of some bubble wrap that I found on a forklift right near parking lot number 10 one day. And I studied a while, took several different shots. I bet you think this is an elephant looking you right in the eye, don't you? How many would think of that? Elephant? Just one of you? 3 of you? 4? 5? Okay, the number is growing. It's not an elephant, obviously. It is a eucalyptus tree near Lotus Land in the rain. And that is the surface of it that I saw. Jesucita Trail. I was with several of you, Christy, Wesley, and Terrell, if you're here. Terrell, is it Terrell or Terrell? I forget always. Just correct me right now, Terrell. Okay. Funny thing is we took another hike months after I did it, and somebody in our group, maybe, I don't know who it was, said, hey, look at that. And it was the very log that I had seen this face on. I thought that was fantastic. Here's a face that my wife and I saw in Laguna Beach when we were invited to go down there and give a speech at the pageant of the Masters. There's a Mexican restaurant that had a patio and white paper on the tables, and they had crayons for the children, and the children, instead of writing on the white tabletops, wrote on the eucalyptus trees. And so I saw this again. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30, and I call this one, I'm working on forgiveness. That one actually moves me because I sort of believe in that person working on forgiveness more than I believe in the tree. And that is a very strange effect. When that starts happening to you, I don't know, is it time for counseling or what? A lot of photos I take are at the beach, water draining back toward the ocean, leaving marks. This is an agave with, I would say, a serious underbite. Taken also in Laguna Beach while waiting to the Sawdust Festival. Here's a rock formation which looked like a man, and again, I believe in this man. I wrote this about him. I think I know this man, and though he's been too active in older art and intellectual circles for me to call him friend, I've always felt that if I met him, he would at least give me the time of day. I like the man, even though he's above my social class. Fence next between us and our neighbors. Can you see a face here with eyes, with a little thin mouth here? I don't know, some people can, some people can't. It's a very windy day, a little rivulet of water, and the wind's distressing the water at one of our local beaches. This was taken in Voskal's library, a little cat, a little nylon string that had been holding us painting or something. It had sprung, and there's a little screw right here, which seems like an eye to me, and there's this word that Gabe Hollis taught me called Peridolia, and that's a propensity that people have to see human faces, or any kind of face, in things. It's just wired into our brains. We respond. And so I'm showing you a lot of faces. I'm not going to comment on everything. They speak for themselves, except this one is weird. This one I took looking toward the light after making a little circle with my fingers like this, and it turned into some kind of cartoon character. This was at Elwood Shores, and I stepped over a log and looked down. It was worm-eaten, and I saw a face. This one, by the way, a little plug for our art gallery at our church called The Art of Hope from Hope Community Church. Emily Milton, who is I'm curating it, and she's the genius behind posting things, so check it out. I am beguiled by this smile. It looks like a smile by somebody with a cleft palate. It's the same day when all that wind was blowing hard and distressing the water surface, but I step back from that and I think there's a spirit of gentleness at work here that I want to be part of me. And it's as much something I read into it as read from it, but it certainly connects me to it. This one, a little different spirit, I would say. Tex here is kind of, he's got an issue of some kind. Do you see a face there? Okay. Okay, now I'm going to get, I actually, though I hate selfies, I've started to take some selfies. But I don't want to take the same old selfie, me in front of the Gaza Pyramid, me in front of the Parthenon, me in front of the Lincoln Memorial. No, I want to see if there's something else that I can get out of it and where I'm not really featured as the subject. So this is a reflection in a lamp. I was busy grading papers at the time, should have been, and I saw this reflection in an oriental lamp. I shouldn't say oriental, it's an Asian lamp, hand-painted, and you can see me in there, but I thought beauty is truth, truth, beauty, these are all you need to know. These are all you know of what did Keats say? These are all you know of life, and all you need to know. That's half of me. But the other half is that rock, it's that bluff. And I wanted to make us equal in proportion. I wanted us to be seen as something like two sides of one river. That was, more exercise in intersubjectivity. This is also me, though it may look like a sand dune at first with blown grasses. That's my head sideways. You see my eye down here. Little poem to go with this one. Whoops. This is also me. And just a short poem says, you are reading a photo of a man reading a novel as the novel reads him. I don't know if it matters, but the novel in question is Middlemarch by George Eliot. I sat with them the whole month of January on my last sabbatical, and so you are reading a photo of a man reading a novel as the novel reads him. The trick was to take a picture of myself while continuing to be engrossed in the novel. It was harder than it looks. Let's see. Yeah, just more photos of different kinds. I got an app called Slow Shutter, which I downloaded, which allows me to take multiple exposures, so I played with that a little bit. And okay, now a few dog photos, okay? One thing I found about dogs, first of all, people like them, and everybody walks them at Arroyo Burro. This one I love because look at the expression on that dog's face. This is a kind of street photography here where you have to be there at the moment. You have to be ready to snap in any moment and to sort of catch the dynamics of everything that's going on around you. It doesn't come easily for me. I like taking inanimate objects because they are not elusive. They don't have attitude. They don't bite. But for me, for this to succeed, this dog has to work, that dog has to work, and this kid has to work with, and they all seem to be working to me. Often when I take a picture of dogs at the beach, I will use this little trick where I'll put it on selfie mode, but then I'll bend down and take it from the ground. That way I, as an old man, don't have to bend down so low, and I don't have to crawl on my belly to get an up angle shot. It works. That's what I was doing here. And this one, I call this disciple on the first Easter morning. So what I do, I wake up about 5 o'clock every single day and have for the last 5 years. Every single day, I can't remember a day that I've missed. I sit down for about a half an hour to an hour with a photo. I edit things first because it's easy, and then I wait for words to come. And I reject the easiest words, the first words that come. More dogs, more dogs. Oh, this one. Against the foxtail menace, putting my head in a bag is no great sacrifice. I'll be honest, I was thinking a lot about masking during the pandemic, so let's just meditate on that a minute. Against the foxtail menace, putting my head in a bag is no great sacrifice. Best of all, I can still lap water, automatically filtered. I don't let the pop gun patriots distract me from my business. It's not better to die an avoidable death. I have to say, though, the heat can be a problem, and no one can see my charming grin. Haven't had a date in weeks. And this also is a dog, believe it or not. That's when the selfie backfires, or something weird happened there, and I cannot, to this day, explain it. at the zoo. This one says, I may not be pretty, but at least I'm equilateral. So we'll stay with the animal kingdom. This one I wrote, feathered ocean, sweetly curling bird. Feathered ocean, sweetly curling bird. Sorry about that. That's a little bit of, it's not haiku in form, really, but it's Zen-like in its spirit, in the interpenetration of ocean, trading of characteristics between ocean and bird. Are you holding up okay with all this? Am I going too fast at all? Too slow? No? Okay, I'll keep going. This is another egret, looking for stuff to eat, scavenging like those other people. And they're not paying attention to each other. That's one of the remarkable things I thought in this photo, not to mention the color treatment, but here I have a longer poem to read. This is this blue anemone, this sea anemone grabbed me. I said, if there's heaven, all my thoughts fall short of it like paper planes. There could be no false God's rule. There could be no diminution of the good. There could be no shrinking to the size of hope. I come back to the sea anemone at lowest tide, made for waving and waiting, now fisted and choked, still watching, still seeing with the marvel of its blue-green eye. It does not sacrifice a world for an abstraction. I cannot leave it behind like a trial balloon snagged in a bush. I must see what it sees, a beautiful blue in the blackness, fingers raised in shaggy hallelujah. Okay, a lot of circles here. This was taken in Giverny in Monet's garden. This was on a bike trail. This was at Calvin College. This was on the beach. And strangely about this one, see, I buy myself time to say more things by going zippity-doo-dah through these. This was a seawall with a hole in it where a pipe used to go. And you see the pipe that the pipe used to extend from, but believe it or not, this pipe here in the middle, that's like the pupil of this eye, is actually 10 feet behind that seawall. There's 10 feet of space between there. It's a totally ambiguous image, but I use it for my Instagram profile picture. I like it so much. This is in Saigon, a bunch of octopi. And this was at Lazy Acres. It's a decorative kale. This was walking across the parking lot at Westmont under the oaks, and with a little color play, quite a few fascinatingly cool and warm colors emerged. And this one, I said this about. There will come a day, and by the way, this was at our church on the patio. Somebody had put down apparently a hibachi or something, and it was all like charcoal, and it had smudged on the pavement, and then people rode through it on their bicycles, and you see the tracks there. That's what I think happened. It says, there will come a day when I no longer rise to an alarm, either because I will have thrown away the clock, or because I will no longer be alarmed by anything, or because I can no longer hear, or no longer rise, or because I cannot distinguish my clocks from the general alarm, or because I will have risen already to raise an alarm, or because we will all have returned to rising with the rooster and the dawn's caress. One day is coming. What will it be? Is this a passion flower? Does anybody know? Passion flower? Now is now. I mean, right now. Not ever or forever, not still and not yet, not before or after, not around or about, but right now. Right now. Just, forget it. try to pin now down, and it's, it's like something out of Dr. Seuss. This is in the parking lot number 10. Somebody planted a palm tree a little close to the wall. That was back 40 at Westmont. I love it when people paint lines on the pavement, then pick up the manhole covers and put them down in a different position. To me, it's much more interesting after the change. And this one I called something like In Memory of Water. This is near the Gaviota Wind Caves. There's strange visual ambiguity there. You know, there's times when I see something like a sheep's head over here or something, but it's several layers deep into a cave, and I don't know if this is an epiglottis or what. It's a strange image, and I love the strangeness of it. This one's a little violently strange, but visually exciting. This was a display case in La Cumbra Mall. This, I don't know where that was. It's, I don't know, but it's a lot of perspective there, as there is in this one. This one I call There's Always a Critic. You recognize this from the Sisyphus one? Same thing, different treatment. This was at O'Hare International Airport. This was out in the farmlands in Galita. And there's a fence, there's a sun falling on a fence, casting a shadow on another fence that's made of canvas. And and I'm on the other side of that. So I was taken with that image. This is in a building called, it looks like a bunch of Reese's peanut butter cups stacked, but no, it's a huge building, exhibition hall called the Durian in Singapore, where we went to meet some parents of a former student of ours, Rebecca Wong, and her parents, Tim and Shirley there. But I fell in love with the rhythms of this shape, which I found echoed in a succulent. And some of those succulents are on Westmont's campus. This is an interesting one. See down here, that's a huge spider, which I did not stage. I found out afterward that I had been under attack. I love the spider's bigger than this guy. Anyway, lot of pattern, a lot of contrast. This is a salmon skin, some kitchen shots here, close-up of salmon skin. And this is an antique salad plate that's in the sink with water underneath it, just trapped there. And this is some congealed fat in the pan where I'd cooked a beef roast for Christmas or something like that. This is in Minneapolis, a bunch of radishes at a farmer's market. And this I took just recently at Ennisbrook, turned it upside down. The next several are all going to be upside down. And something happens when you turn things upside down. Here it makes it look like the trees are reflected in a pond with the nasturtiums growing up on the bank, but that's not, in fact, what was going on. This is somewhere out near Carpinteria, maybe near Miramar. This I like, the ghostliness of that one. So you see there's strangeness here. This I took I poked my lens into a vintage street lamp at the Natural History Museum. You notice the filament of the old bulb here, and it just seemed like a sort of strange landscape, kind of an armored sky. Can't say more about it. This is actually taken not too far from here near Victoria Court. This is turned on its side at high noon, throwing shadows of palm trees on a parking lot. And I turned it like this, and suddenly I've got a starry night sky and an Italian villa, maybe, or a walled city, or who knows what I'm looking at. But that's what I see. Do you? You can make up your own, I won't check. This is upside down. I'm in a wave washing on the shore, but I thought how appropriate for Santa Barbara. You know, you can see the pier down here on the lower right, but snowy mountains, I yearn for snow, and it gave me both the water and the mountains. Close up of a fence in Goleta against a patched wall. Esau's at Summerland. Reflections in the top of my Mini Cooper. Oh, this is curiosity. This is an upside-down picture of the toilet paper in the men's room at Reynolds Hall where I work. So some of you will never have seen this before and probably never will, but it's there. And I saw a polar bear kind of maybe crying for help as his last ice floe melts underneath him. This is a very calm day at Arroyo Burro Beach, and I love the weirdness of it. Here's the people you see walking their dogs at the beach, but I'm more interested in all of this. And then this is an upside-down staircase at somewhere near Miramar. This is a cabana over at Summerlin Park. There's a more serious subject. I turned this upside down when I have this person sleeping on the pavement near Savoy Deli. I just thought, what a commentary. It's almost like this person is like gum on the underside of a desk, the refuse of our teeming shores. And it means more to me upside down than it does right side up. I thought I had there's a poem to go with this one on the back of one of those books back there. See how strategically I brought that idea of a book there? Those are for sale for $75 if you talk to my wife. I'll pretend I didn't say that. And a little bit more of a calligraphy-like treatment here. Reflections in water. I'm going to go through this more quickly. This is actually upside down image of the mission in the fountain out front of it. I don't need to comment on everything here. Down at the marina. That one struck me as a strange shish kebab effect. I love the way lines on water behave. And I was looking at those lines once when this blackbird flew through and just happened to, I don't know, sometimes I feel blessed when something like that happens. Oh, I have a poem to go with this one. This is sometime after one of our rare rains here in Santa Barbara. It says here, contrary to popular opinion, a duck's life is not all opportunity and achievement. That was supposed to be funny, so it's okay. I have moments when I think, what the heck am I doing here? That's when I'm grateful I have family and a job. That was written during the depths of the pandemic. Okay, some reflections, more reflections. This is actually a reflection in that same overhead reflector. Okay, I'm going to go a little faster. Laguna Beach, a traffic mirror, LAX, Minneapolis. Now I'm going to show you a few that are dealing with what Henri Cartier-Bresson called the decisive moment. That moment when things are happening spontaneously, and the capturing of that moment constitutes the event. In other words, if it hadn't been seen, and this is what I write right now on my Instagram feed, that things that had not been, had they not been seen. I don't have a hole in my finger, as it may appear, but this was an artifact of pointing my camera at the sun, and I had to capture that somehow. This was just a moment when the sun was just so, casting a black shadow on a wall from this alarm, and it just seemed like an idea trying to escape. Decisive moment. The expression in those arms, those hands. I modinari. I love that one. The moment of touch, the color on the hand, the color on the pavement. This is an interesting moment here. If you follow the line of that man's arm, what do you see up here in the right corner? A brick. He's throwing a brick to his fellow, and they're all yelling at each other and doing things and so forth. I just wanted to celebrate the culture among workers. And here's a person laying a new surface on the tennis courts at Westmont. This is Mary Humphreys. I see you here. Do you recognize this?
Oh, yes.
This is your house.
Yes, and my grandson.
And your grandson. And I took this, believe it or not, I took this on Good Friday. Do you see why I call that the decisive moment? A minute later, and I would have no reference to the passion of Christ, but here it is. Unintended. Here's our grandson. Art imitating life, life imitating art. Everybody sort of driven into a Dionysian frenzy. Childhood. And here's another kind of Dionysian frenzy. When the winds kick up, when Santa Ana hits, notice how these leaves are off the ground. They're flying. That's what the wind does sometimes at Westmont. This is my favorite of all photographs I've ever taken because I waited the longest for it, a full half hour for somebody to show up in the midst of that hula hoop. I was behind a bike rack, and here came this woman with a red bike and a red shirt with the red. It was Customer Appreciation Day for Target, which is headquartered in Minneapolis that day. So there was the street was open as an obstacle course, and people were having fun all around. But just exactly the right moment to fit her like a hamster in a wheel. A little comment on work, maybe not intended, but do with it what you will. Another unintended moment, I was just waiting for the light to change. Holy cow. Snap, he doesn't know I took that picture of him with his red hat, the orange arrow, the pink suit. This was a policewoman in Minneapolis, and I was with a friend named Asher Imtiaz, who was leading a street photography workshop. He was busy talking her up, chatting her up. I was too shy to chat her up, but I asked her, do you mind if I take some pictures of you while he's talking to you? And so she said, sure. So I just saw the rest of the city reflected in her glasses. And I just loved her forehead. I just loved her eyes. I don't know her, but I feel like I'm in love. Also in love, this is my mother and my brother. A study in facial features and in texture of skin, shape of nose, and use of cell phone. Enough said. This is my mother too, after she recovered from the stroke. I said we'd put her in hospice. She graduated from hospice, and she's living independently today, years later. And she lost all of one side of her body. No feeling, no swallow reflex, no movement, all on one left side of her body. And so this, for me, captures a deep emotional experience. And it also is something about the way that hand reaches out and touches and makes just that point. And the look in that eye, that little dot there, it says everything I could say about my mother and a little bit more. This is a shadow that fell on my living room floor just for one moment. I don't know about you, but I see sort of like a devil in the pool. A little forked tail here. Strange moment in the pool. And then a happier moment. And then one of the most peaceful scenes I've seen. Everything is afloat here. I just feel I'm afloat when I see it. And then there is this one, the little boy in the water and the water in the little boy. Notice how hard he's sucking on that plastic water bottle. It's gonna be good to the last drop. And he's, of course, decked out in water wings and everything. And little moments in here, little places like this little red, a drip of some kind. I don't know. This is one that I enjoy. This is the Gaviota Wind Caves. I saw a hole in the rocks, and I knew that sometime somebody would come in there, and it would be like the eye was blinking. And sure enough, here a man and his dog set up in there just for a little while, and then, I felt, and now we had eye contact. This was about a month ago when it rained at Westmont's campus. This one actually I took while idling in a car under the railroad pass near the bird refuge. I saw the shaft of sunlight falling on the wall. And this photograph is in a book that's back there. It's gone on in a national tour of a photography show that's based on the liturgical year. So that's gone on to have a second life that I never anticipated. These are some from my wife's 50th anniversary of her high school. This is La Cumbre Junior High Theater Department overspray on the theater, on the workroom floor. And I don't know what I'm seeing there, but it's more interesting than the workroom floor. Buildings in Minneapolis, an angelic-looking sky in Julian, near northern San Diego County, near Albuquerque. This is near Madrid in Spain. I thought, near Alamogordo, where they did the atomic bomb testing. Interesting how that cloud seems to. And then there's Jesus reflected in the cross 3 times here. There's a lot going on in that photo. You could allegorize that all day long. I just call that benediction. This is the guy who takes care of the place, but St. Francis seemed to be showing him special favor. And I loved his red hat. This is a shadow from my rooftop falling right exactly to a electric cord that was across a pathway. I thought there's a coincidental moment there. And this is an interesting thing, the corkscrew wave. I don't have a poem for you. An elephant? The softness of the sand got to me here. These are kind of sensuous images, body, well, not that one so much, but this is a little bit more like I feel sometimes. This guy, I see a little bit of a frown over here. I'm just flying by here, showing different things that can be done with the camera. My wife is in the corner here. I tilted the whole thing. In the middle of the pandemic year, we did a lot of walking. And so this is a commemoration of some of those. This one looks almost like a map of the United States to me, so it becomes kind of an allegory about political division. And this one is a little poem. I offer you, in the cup of my hands, the trembling of a shadow, a ladling of sky. I think probably I've gone far enough. I'm just going to really go fast through the remainder to show you what I would have talked about at greater length. And, there's too many photos here for me to show. But I think it would be okay if I just stopped about here. Maybe I'll choose one more poem to read to you. This is not the coronavirus. This is a flower at the Ventura Botanical Garden. And now this one sort of stands for the plague that's beset us. This was a tree down by Chase Palm Park, but seen from this way, it looked like a black, horrid runner through the scene. I just thought, God, there's something just mythic about this one. It just stirs me. A lot of them having to do with wood here. This one I haven't posted yet, but I'll say something about Good Friday when the time comes. It just seems to beg to be named. So, this one I believe I need to read this. I wrote a little, kind of a story with this one. I was in a barn at a men's room. I looked at the boards and I saw, hey, what is that white spot? That looks like a shard of old wallpaper. And it sure enough is. So, I wrote this, and I sat with that one a while and said, what happened in that room? Who lived in the room where this was the wallpaper? So this was what came out after about a half an hour's meditation. This was the room where the baby was born, with all the trouble after, where the letter came that sat so long on the round stand, where such hard silence reigned for a while, where came finally a hug, then a shy kiss, many kisses over time, and rocking, living again until the rocking ceased. I think I'm just going to stop there because I'm not going to hit an emotionally deeper spot than that, okay? So what I'm going to do is just stop showing you pictures and end with a movie. We have a 10-minute film made of my work with me reading the poetry, and it was made by John Skidonov. John, you're not here, are you? I'm not telling you my name. It's written on everything. You will read it with your feet. Wood to lumber, skin to leather, work to labor, boxes to bales, nature to nature, duration to time, art to content, virtue to fame, arguments to positions, cows to cattle to beef. The cat never even used the cardboard scratch pad, maybe once. But I still go all sad when I see it, especially when I try to peer through its many pores at a bright red hibiscus and see only scattered shards of light. Is there any object anywhere that does not remind us of the dead? Are there any dead that do not remind the living of living? Or any living that do not remind the living to love? They tell me to dance. I tell them I am dancing after my fashion. I tell them to smile. They tell me they are smiling in their own fashion. Told to care, we do care, we say, in our own way. We share your sorrow. What if we believed one another? If not today, then tomorrow. As we grow up, apart, away, the imprint of the family rises with us, a theater of shadows, jagged, sometimes beautiful ghosts. Dear son, I cannot say you've merely fallen on me, when I myself have grown to meet you, and we've grown together in mutual gratitude, tacitly, like parent and child. So much going on in the soil, so much in the compost of time. All the dead in their capital cities, seeds debating which and when. All the winters going and coming, springs, so much going on in the soul. Trying to end my own complicity in a system that privileges whites like me is like trying to sweep away my own shadow with a broom. After a tense exchange where each got done what each needed to do, but little was understood, long after, when it felt safe to come out, I realized there'd been a heart there, a heart beating all along, and it was
ours. Don't look too closely unless you are a scientist, a doctor, a saint, a madman, or a fool. The look into stone, water, sky, or flame is a look into the human heart. Sea rack, sun track, hug and shiver, thank the giver. It takes more than a cruise to heal the deep bone bruise. Time alone it takes the bone. Begin the day open to the Maker, and all the diving, squawking, and squabbling that follows will be fitly framed. Imagine nothing first, then that everything, or just the sheerness of this one fine thing, were left for you like an unsigned package on the porch. Would you not call out to thank everyone you knew? I come here to lament. I come here to learn. I come here to live, not upon, but in and among. Between flicks of a shutter I do. I was not there, but I believe when God said, "Let there be light," they was not issuing commands, but giving permission, letting it rip. Same for sun, moon, and stars, and for waters, over and under the earth. Same for plants, animals, and us, especially maybe us. Rules came from order, not order from rules. And all rule in excess of the order of things is the calf heart's bawling cry for return to the way it was and can never again be. As the earth tumbles forward like a drunk on a bicycle toward that day, that impossible day when order and rule are once again one with permission given simply to be. So I think, at least this morning, as I stumble barefoot to the root of the driveway, pick up the plastic-bagged paper, and spank off the dew. Listen to those who are wise. Work with those who build. Follow those who sacrifice for the good. Feel with those who bless the meek.
That's it. You can bring the lights up. Thank you so much for that. That is the end of it here, but I just want to say that the film originated in a request coming from John Skidanoff, who did the technical part of the film here. He was working a volunteer basis for something called the Mindful Hearts program in Santa Barbara. During the pandemic, they were holding kind of meditation sessions online for 60 people at a time or so. And they asked me if I would show up one day on Zoom. So I read live those poems, and that's exactly the same slideshow that I showed them on Zoom. And we said, it had such a powerful effect on me, I could hardly read those poems. And The effect on the audience seemed explosive. I mean, it just beyond anything I expected. So we decided to make it into a movie. I still find it almost unbearable at points. That's just me dealing with the things that went into the writing of the poem. Thank you so much for being here. You've been great, and it's been a pleasure to serve you.